Welcome back, learners. Today we're tackling a topic near and dear to my heart, lifelong learning.
Always a good topic.
A listener sent in this research paper about questionnaires
Okay.
that measure what makes a successful learner.
Right.
And I thought it would be a fascinating deep dive for us.
Yeah, it's interesting how these questionnaires go beyond just like test scores
Right.
and try to get at the underlying psychological and behavioral stuff,
Absolutely.
like your attitude towards learning, how you approach it, how you deal with information.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more insightful than just grades.
You know me, I love getting into the nitty-gritty of why things work,
Right.
not just that they work.
Yeah.
So this particular paper, it focuses on four main questionnaires: LASSI, MedNord, MSLQ, and SRSSDL.
Catchy names,
You
right?
know, they're memorable for sure.
And each one kind of comes at this idea of lifelong learning from a slightly different angle.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of each questionnaire, can we break down what those core competencies of lifelong learning actually are?
Of course. So we have study orientation, which is basically how you approach learning.
Okay.
So it's about understanding, like, what are your beliefs about learning? What's your attitude towards learning new things?
Gotcha.
Do you prefer a structured environment, or do you like to be more self-directed? So it's really about understanding those subtle differences in how we as individuals learn best.
So it's less about the what you're learning and more about the how and the why behind your learning journey.
Exactly. How you engage with new information, new experiences, it's all connected.
So some people might love being in a silent library with a textbook, and others are like, I need to be walking around, I need to be talking it out.
Exactly. And knowing that about yourself can make all the difference. Then we have information literacy.
Which, especially now, feels like a superpower.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because it's about being able to effectively navigate this world of information that's constantly bombarding us.
Right.
Finding credible sources, evaluating different viewpoints, being able to sip through it all.
It's a jungle out there.
It is, it truly is. And then finally, and this one's often overlooked, is well-being.
Okay, yeah. I can see how that's important, but in terms of a core competency of learning,
Right.
I'm curious to see how that ties in.
Yeah, because your mental and emotional state plays a huge role in how well you learn and retain information.
Yeah. It's like if you're trying to bake a cake and the oven's not hot enough.
Exact.
It doesn't matter how good your ingredients are, it's not going to work.
You've got to have the right environment, internally and externally, for that learning to really take root.
It's all connected. I like it. So these questionnaires, they take all of that into account.
They do, each in their own way,
Yeah.
and that's what makes comparing them so fascinating.
So we've got our three competencies, and now I'm dying to unpack how these questionnaires actually measure them.
Okay.
Let's start with LASSI. What's its claim to fame in the learning assessment world?
So LASSI, or the Learning and Study Strategies Inventory, as it's formally known. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it's often used in educational settings because it's really good at pinpointing specific areas where a learner can improve. And it's especially well regarded for its focus on information literacy.
Which, in our digital age, feels like essential.
Oh, absolutely. Think of LASSI as like a diagnostic tool for your information gathering habits.
I like that.
So it helps identify your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to things like evaluating sources, spotting bias, even understanding how you personally absorb information best.
So, like, how would LASSI uncover those individual strengths and weaknesses? Can you give me an example?
Sure. So, for example, LASSI can tell you whether you're better at just directly absorbing new information, like remembering facts and figures,
Okay.
or if you thrive when you can connect new information to something you already know, kind of build a web of understanding.
See, I'm definitely the second one. Like, if I just try to memorize a bunch of random facts, it just goes in one ear and out the other. But if I can connect it to a story or a bigger picture,
Right.
then it sticks.
And that's what's so cool about LASSI. It helps you figure out what those hooks are for you.
Okay, I like that.
But the great thing is, it doesn't just tell you what you're good at. It also points out areas where you might need to, level up your skills a bit.
So if my LASSI results told me I need to work on, say, evaluating sources, I could then go and maybe take a course on critical thinking, media literacy, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It empowers you to take control of your learning.
Instead of just feeling like, oh, I'm not good at that.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, here's why, and here's what you can do about it.
Precisely. All right. So that's LASSI in a nutshell. Ready to move on to MedNord?
I am, yeah. It sounds like it explores a different side of learning.
It does. If LASSI is the information specialist, then MedNord is all about understanding your own individual study orientation
Okay.
and how well-being plays into that.
Ah, so this is where those internal factors we talked about earlier come into play.
Exactly. MedNord digs into things like your preferred learning environments.
Oh, interesting.
Like, are you someone who needs a silent library to concentrate?
Right.
Or do you actually focus better in a bustling coffee shop with lots of ambient noise?
I'm a coffee shop person, for sure. I need a little bit of that buzz around me to stay engaged.
It's amazing how individual those preferences can be.
Mm.
And MedNord also looks at how you deal with stress.
Oh, that's huge. Because I know when I'm stressed, my learning just goes out the window.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like I just start highlighting everything in the textbook and nothing's actually sinking in.
Right. It's like you go into survival mode or something.
Literally.
But what MedNord highlights is that by recognizing how stress affects your learning, you can actually start to develop coping mechanisms.
So it's about understanding those personal triggers and building a toolkit to navigate them.
Exactly. And MedNord even goes a step further. It looks at your sense of belonging and support within your learning environment.
Like, do I feel comfortable asking for help? Do I feel like I'm part of a community?
Exactly. Those things, even though they seem subtle, can make a huge difference.
It's like the difference between trying to learn a new language in a classroom where everyone is supportive and encouraging versus trying to learn it on your own, feeling lost and alone.
Exactly. MedNord reminds us that learning isn't just about what's going on in our heads.
Right.
Our environment, our emotional state, our support systems, it all plays a role.
It's all connected. I'm loving these insights. Okay, bring on MSLQ,
All right, MSLQ, this one's all about motivation.
which, let's be honest, is huge EE.
It really is.
Because you could have access to all the best learning resources in the world,
Right.
but if you're not motivated to learn,
We're not going to get very far.
exactly.
Yeah.
So how does MSLQ get to the bottom of what motivates us?
Well, it starts by acknowledging that motivation isn't one size fits all.
Okay.
Some people, they're driven by external rewards.
Like grades, praise, maybe promotion at work.
Exactly. Whereas others are more intrinsically motivated. They learn because they're genuinely curious about the world. They find joy in expanding their knowledge.
Yep. And knowing which one of those resonates most strongly with you,
Yeah.
that's key.
Huge. Because then you can create a learning experience that's actually fulfilling and effective for you.
So, for example, if I discover that I'm really driven by, say, a desire for mastery, that feeling of, like, I want to get really good at this,
Yeah.
then MSLQ might suggest strategies that play into that, like setting ambitious goals, seeking out challenging material, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's about understanding what gets your learning engine going
Yeah.
and then using that knowledge to fuel your journey.
Okay. I'm liking MSLQ more and more.
And it gets even more interesting. MSLQ also acknowledges that our motivational drivers can change.
Oh, that's so true.
Right. What motivates you to learn a new language
Yeah.
might be totally different from what motivates you to pick up a new skill at work.
Yeah. And even just like depending on what's going on in my life at that moment,
Absolutely.
I might be more or less motivated to, commit to something new.
Exactly. And that's the power of MSLQ.
Yeah.
It helps you identify those deeper motivations,
Okay.
and then it gives you insights into how to actually use them to your advantage. It's about finding that sweet spot where your learning feels both challenging and rewarding.
We've covered so much ground today, from information literacy with LASSI to understanding our study orientation and well-being with MedNord,
Right.
and then diving deep into motivation with MSLQ. My brain is buzzing with all these new insights into how I learn best.
I love it because that's what it's all about, right? Empowering yourself to become a more effective learner
Yes.
by understanding your own unique learning style.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we have SRSSDL, our final questionnaire. So what makes this one stand out in the world of lifelong learning assessments?
Well, SRSSDL stands for the Self-Rating Scale of Self-Directed Learning, and it really gets to the heart of what it means to be a lifelong learner.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Because it focuses specifically on your ability to guide your own learning, even outside of like formal classrooms or courses.
Which, with the amount of information available to us now, the different ways we can learn independently
Yeah.
feels more important than ever.
It's not enough to just passively absorb knowledge anymore. You have to be able to identify what you need to learn, find reliable sources, stay motivated,
Right.
track your own progress.
All those things.
These are the hallmarks of a successful self-directed learner. And SRSSDL helps you assess, like, how do you measure up in those areas?
It's like graduating from the world of textbooks and classrooms to like the open seas of independent learning, exploration.
Exactly. And just like navigating a ship, requires certain skills and awareness, so does self-directed learning.
I like that analogy.
And that's where SRSSDL comes in.
Yeah.
It can reveal, for example, how comfortable are you setting your own learning goals?
Mm.
Because some people thrive on that autonomy, right?
Hmm.
Whereas others might actually need a bit more structure and guidance.
Knowing that about yourself could save you a lot of frustration. Like, imagine signing up for some massive online course only to realize halfway through
Right.
that you really crave having a teacher. You need that classroom interaction.
You've got to have those support systems in place
Yeah.
or it's not going to work.
Exactly. And SRSSDL, it goes beyond just goal setting, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. It also helps you understand your natural inclinations when it comes to things like seeking out new information, evaluating the credibility of sources,
Right.
knowing when to ask for help, which, by the way, is a crucial skill in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. There's no shame in asking for help, especially when you're navigating this big, wide world of information on your own.
Exactly. You don't have to do it all alone.
This has been fascinating, honestly, learning about these 4 questionnaires.
Yeah.
LASSI, MedNord, MSLQ, SRSSDL.
It's quite a lineup.
It is. It's got me thinking about my own learning habits in a whole new light. And more importantly, it's given me some concrete tools and strategies to actually put these insights into practice.
And that's what we love to hear.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about fitting yourself into some kind of perfect learner mold.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding what works for you.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there a final thought, a spark to ignite our listeners' continued learning journeys?
You know, as comprehensive as these 4 questionnaires are, they still only scratch the surface of what it means to be a learner.
Oh, I like that.
So my question for you, and for everyone listening, is this. If you could design the ultimate lifelong learning assessment, one that truly captured every facet of a learner's potential, what would it look like? What would it include?
Ooh, what a fantastic question to ponder. I know I'm adding that to my to think about list. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. It's been truly illuminating.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, everyone, the learning never stops.